I found the camera by accident, but nothing about that discovery was accidental. It was hidden inside the wall clock in my living room. Not just any clock, it never was. It hung on the same wall for over 30 years, watching my life unfold in silence. Everything I had been, everything I had lost, everything that remained of me. The camera was installed with professional precision, too discreet to be a mistake, too efficient to be improvised. Wireless transmission, a wide-angle lens, carefully positioned to capture every inch of the room, from the bedroom door to the coffee table, from the leather armchair where I used to nap after lunch to the window overlooking the coffee fields. Someone was watching me. At 62, living alone at Santa Teresa Farm, the land my family had built with 3 generations of sweat, I found myself asking a question I never imagined I would have to ask. Who decided I no longer had the right to my own privacy? For a few seconds, I just sat there, the clock resting on my lap, feeling the weight of the discovery seep into my body. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, more corrosive. It was betrayal. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I did none of the things a terrified woman is expected to do. Because I wasn't just a terrified woman. For 34 years, I worked at Banco do Brasil. I started young, barely more than a girl, and retired as an operations manager. I saw people lie straight into your eyes. I watched families destroy each other over money. I witnessed scams so carefully planned they felt like works of fiction. I learned early that when someone is deceiving you, the worst mistake you can make is letting them know you've noticed. Fraud is investigated in silence. So I closed the clock's back panel. Put it back on the wall. In the same place, with the camera intact, watching me. Go ahead, I whispered to the invisible lens. Watch. The clock resumed its steady ticking, as if nothing had happened, as if it weren't betraying me. The ritual. Cleaning the clock had always been sacred. A small gesture, repeated twice a year, keeping alive everything I had lost. It was my husband, Osvaldo, who created the ritual. Every June 1st and every December 1st, without exception, he would take the clock off the wall, wipe the dark wood with a soft cloth, polish the glass with near ceremonial care, and check the pendulum for the slightest imbalance. Machines need care, he used to say. Just like marriage. Ignore the details long enough, and one day, everything stops working, and you won't even know why. Osvaldo died 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from diagnosis to burial. Just enough time for rushed goodbyes and promises that could never be kept. But the ritual stayed. Every June 1st, every December 1st, I climbed the aluminum step ladder, more carefully than before, my knees no longer forgiving, and repeated every movement he had taught me. It was my way of keeping him close, of pretending for a few hours that he was still there. The clock had been bought in 1989 on a trip to Ouro Preto. Silvana was only 5 back then. The shopkeeper said it was a replica of a 19th century Portuguese model. Osvaldo paid far too much for it, but left the store smiling like a boy who had just gotten away with something. This clock will watch our grandchildren grow, he said. And it did. It watched our daughter grow up, become a woman, get married. It watched our grandson be born. It watched Osvaldo fall ill, fade away, and die. And now, apparently, it had taken on a new role, spying on the widow who remained. The wrong weight. That Saturday morning, June 1st, the sun was already high when I began the ritual. Coffee with milk, brewed through a cloth filter, cornbread Dona Zilda had brought the day before, the routine of someone who lives in the countryside and wakes early even when there's no need to. I grabbed the ladder, carried it to the living room, climbed up carefully, and reached for the clock. That's when I felt it. The weight was wrong. It wasn't something just anyone would notice, but I wasn't just anyone. 30 years of holding that same object twice a year had taught my hands exactly how much it should weigh. That morning, it felt heavier, as if it carried more than time. I climbed down slowly, sat in the brown leather armchair Osvaldo had brought home when he retired, placed the clock on my lap, and opened the back panel. That's when I saw it. A black cylinder, about the size of my thumb, perfectly fitted next to the battery compartment. At its tip, a tiny lens pointed outward through a hole drilled in the wood, a hole that had never existed before. Someone had drilled into my clock. Someone had violated one of the few sacred objects I had left. I sat there, frozen for long seconds, maybe minutes, not breathing, not thinking, just staring. It wasn't a cheap camera. It wasn't a toy. It wasn't curiosity. It was professional equipment. Expensive, precise, planned. Someone was watching me inside my own home. For the next few days, I pretended nothing had happened. That was the hardest part. Not discovering the camera, not the fear, not even the suspicion that was slowly taking shape inside me like a silent disease. The hardest part was acting normal, smiling, moving through the house, making coffee, talking to people, knowing that every gesture might be watched by someone who claimed to love me. Or worse, someone who truly believed they had the right to control me. The camera remained hidden inside the clock, and I let it stay. I needed it, because those who watch eventually reveal themselves. A house that was no longer mine. I began noticing things I had never paid attention to before. The way morning light crossed the living room and illuminated the center of the rug. The sound of the pendulum swinging, steady, hypnotic. The unsettling feeling of never being alone, even when the house was empty. At night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if there were more cameras, if someone was watching me sleep, if they analyzed my movements, my trips to the bathroom, my silences. I didn't search for other devices right away. The banker in me knew better. You don't dismantle the scene before understanding the game. So I kept my routine. Morning walks through the coffee fields, conversations with Tonino about the weather, trips to town for groceries, coffee on the porch at the same hour as always. But inside, everything had changed. I was watching everything and everyone. Memory begins to align. Old conversations resurfaced. Things that once felt harmless, now heavy with meaning. Silvana asking about my medication. "Mom, you're taking everything correctly, right? You're not forgetting anything." Silvana wanting my doctor's contact. "What's Dr. Pacheco's number again, just in case?" Silvana bringing up my will. "Have you thought about what will happen to the farm when the time comes?" Back then, I thought it was concern. Now, it sounded like data collection. And there was something else, something I had ignored but could no longer escape. Her smile. It wasn't relief when I said everything was fine. It was the smile of someone already planning the next move. The first confirmation. On Wednesday morning, very early, something happened that seemed too small to matter, but it mattered. A lot. It was around 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I got up for water and turned on the light in the living room so I wouldn't trip. I tripped anyway. My knee hit the sharp corner of the coffee table. The pain was so intense I had to sit on the floor for several minutes, clutching my leg, breathing through it, cursing my own carelessness. I told no one. I didn't limp. There was no bruise. Just a stupid accident in the middle of the night with no witnesses. Or so I thought. Sunday. The following Sunday, at 11 in the morning, Silvana's car appeared, kicking up dust on the dirt road. I was on the porch, drinking coffee. I saw the silver SUV approaching and felt my stomach tighten in a way I had never felt before. It wasn't joy, it wasn't affection, it was alert. Silvana stepped out holding a covered dish. Behind her came Eugenio, my son-in-law. Married to her for 10 years, rural real estate broker, a man who knew the value of land the way others knew the value of gold. He had always seemed cold to me, calculating, the kind who listens more than he speaks. Oswaldo never liked him. "That man has dead fish eyes," he used to say. At the time, I thought it was exaggeration. Now, I noticed everything. The question that should not exist. We sat at the table. Chicken with okra, cornmeal mush, collard greens. The same recipes I had taught Silvana when she was a teenager. We ate in comfortable silence until she spoke, casually, without looking at me. "Mom, how's that knee you hit on the table?" The world stopped. My entire body went cold. My fork froze in midair. I felt the blood drain from my face. She couldn't know. I hadn't told anyone. There was no bruise, no limp. It had happened at 3 in the morning, in the dark, with me alone. There was only one explanation. She had seen me. "What knee?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. Silvana turned too fast. "Oh, I thought you mentioned it. Must have mixed it up." Silence. The kind that screams. Eugenio kept chewing slowly, as if nothing had happened. But I knew. My daughter was watching me. The glance upward. "You look tired, Mom," Silvana said, changing the subject. "Are you sleeping well?" "Like a rock." "I don't know. You have dark circles." As she spoke, her eyes lifted, quickly, not to my face, to the ceiling, toward the living room, toward the clock. Something broke inside me. Not anger, grief. The disguised threat. After lunch, Silvana said she needed to check the electrical panel. A perfect excuse to move through the house. I let her. I stayed in the kitchen washing dishes. Eugenio remained seated, watching. "Did you hear Azevedo sold 50 hectares?" he asked casually. I heard. 4 million. Land prices are insane, right? I didn't answer. "How many hectares do you have here again?" 180. He whistled softly. "That's a lot of assets, Dona Carmen. A lot." There was no admiration in his gaze as he looked at the coffee fields through the window. There was calculation. Silvana returned, sat beside him, and took his hand. They exchanged a look too quick to be innocent. "Have you thought about the future?" Eugenio asked. "The future how?" "Well, when you can't handle all this alone anymore." "I can handle it." He smiled. "Of course. But nowadays there are excellent care facilities, pools, physical therapy, nurses 24 hours a day. You'd like it." He laughed. It wasn't a joke. It was a warning. 4 eyes, 4 cameras. When they left, I hugged Silvana longer than usual. She hugged me just as tightly. "I love you, Mom." "I know." We lied to each other. As soon as the car disappeared down the road, I started searching. I found 3 more cameras, one in the kitchen lamp, one inside the small shrine to Our Lady of Apareciva, and one in the office, pointed directly at the desk where I kept my documents. My entire house was wired. My daughter knew everything. Every step, every paper, every phone call. I sat in Osvaldo's armchair and closed my eyes. The question was no longer why. It was what she planned to do to me. And with terrifying clarity, I knew. This was only the beginning. After I found the other cameras, I did nothing for several minutes. I just sat there. The leather armchair creaked beneath my weight, the same familiar sound it had made during countless afternoons when Osvaldo slept with a newspaper open on his lap. The clock on the wall kept ticking, tick, tock, tick, tock, as if mocking me. Now I knew. It wasn't just measuring time. It was recording my life. My home was no longer a refuge. It had become a stage, and I was the only actress who didn't know the script. Or at least, that's what they thought. The decision. I cried. Not immediately. First came a hollow feeling, as if something had been ripped out of me. Then memories followed. Silvana as a child, running through the house with her hair in pigtails. Silvana as a teenager, slamming her bedroom door after a pointless argument. Silvana as an adult, crying in my arms at her father's funeral. At what point had that girl turned into a woman who spied on her own mother? Or maybe she had always been like this and I had simply refused to see it. When the tears finally came, they were silent. I didn't give them the show. Not yet. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and made the hardest decision of my life. If they wanted a confused old woman, that's exactly what I would become. The mask. The next morning, when Silvana called early, I answered with a sluggish voice. "Mom, were you sleeping?" "Sleeping?" I hesitated. "What day is it today, my dear?" She paused on the other end. I could almost hear the smile forming. "Thursday, Mom. Have you had breakfast?" "Breakfast? Oh, I think so. Or maybe not. I can't remember." "Mom," her voice softened, careful, rehearsed. "You've been forgetting a lot of things." "Have I?" I murmured. "Must be my age." She hung up, saying she'd come by on Sunday. I ended the call feeling nauseous. Not from lying to her, but from realizing how much she enjoyed it. Documenting. That night, I started writing. I took an old hardcover notebook and began recording everything. Dates, times, what Silvana said, what I answered, every look, every gesture, every sentence that seemed too small to matter. Writing became my secret ritual. I hid the notebook in the chicken coop, inside an old feed can, too unlikely a place to be searched. Every night, once the house fell silent, I wrote. It was the only way to stay sane. The money. Still, one question gnawed at me. If she was spying on me, what else was she doing? The following Monday, I made up an excuse to go into town. I told Tonino I had bank matters to resolve. I didn't use my computer. I didn't use my phone. Nothing in my house was trustworthy. I went to the public library. I never imagined my safety would depend on public computers. The clerk helped me log in. I sat in front of the screen like someone waiting for a verdict. When the balance appeared, my hands began to shake. Money was missing. A lot of money. The savings account that should have held over 600,000 reais was down to just over 400. I opened the detailed statement. Transfers. Many of them. Always to the same company, EC Agricultural Investments Limited. Fragmented amounts. Classic strategy. Old scam. I scrolled, my stomach twisting. Then I saw something worse. Caio's account. My grandson's. The savings account I had funded since the day he was born was empty. Zero. The money had first been transferred to my own account, then vanished along with the rest. She stole from her own son. Something inside me died completely at that moment. The police. I left the library in a daze, walked 2 blocks to the police station without feeling my legs. Detective Nascimento listened politely, skeptically. I told him everything. The cameras, the money, my suspicion. He stayed silent. "Mrs. Carmen," he finally said, "without direct proof linking your daughter to the transfers, this is difficult." I already knew. I had worked my entire life knowing that. That's when he handed me a card. Maristela Duarte, private investigator. She specializes in financial crimes against the elderly, he said. And this is escalating. Escalating. The word echoed in my mind. The investigator. I called Maristela the next day from a payphone. She scheduled a meeting in Uberlandia. The moment I saw her, I knew I'd chosen right. Steady eyes, direct voice, no false sympathy. "What you're describing has a name," she said after listening carefully. "Elder financial abuse." She laid out the pattern. Surveillance, financial drainage, legal control. "The next step is guardianship," she concluded, "institutionalizing you, taking everything." My entire body went cold. Eugenio's joke about care facilities flashed through my mind like a delayed warning. "They've already shown signs," Maristela continued, "and they won't stop." What do I do? She looked me straight in the eye. "We gather evidence, and fast. The performance continues." I returned to the farm knowing I was walking a tightrope. If Silvana realized I knew, she could speed everything up. So I kept acting, mixing up names, repeating questions, forgetting dates, pretending to depend on her for things I'd always done alone. Silvana flourished. "See, Mom?" she said, smiling in that way that made me sick. "That's why I worry." At night, I wrote, and I waited, because now I understood something terrifying. The danger wasn't coming. It was already inside my house. Maristela wasted no time. 2 days after our meeting, she arrived at the farm driving a car ordinary enough not to attract attention. No flashy clothes, no intimidating posture. She looked like just another agricultural technician, someone interested in coffee, soil, productivity. Silvana was working that day. Perfect. "Do you have any idea how many cameras are in this house?" Maristela asked, walking slowly through the living room, observing everything without touching a thing. "At least 4. I'd bet on more." She was right. We found 2 additional ones, one in the hallway leading to the bedrooms, and another embedded in a fake electrical outlet on the porch, everything connected to a remote system. "Professional," Maristela murmured, "far beyond simple family curiosity." A chill ran through me. The logic of the scam. We sat at the kitchen table. Maristela opened a notebook and drew the scheme. "First, emotional isolation," she explained. "They make you doubt yourself. Then surveillance. Then financial control. The final step is legalizing that control. Guardianship." Exactly. She looked up. "You still have full legal autonomy, but that can change quickly if they file a well-structured request." "And how do we stop it?" Maristela took a breath. "By proving they're manufacturing the narrative of incapacity. The bigger risk." We shut off the house's power for a few minutes. Maristela installed micro-recorders in the camera's blind spots and a small device that monitored network data traffic. "Will they notice?" I asked. "If they do, it's over," she replied, "but it's unlikely. People who spy usually believe no one else could be doing the same." I laughed, without humor. The unexpected visit. The next day, Silvana showed up without warning. "Mom, I just stopped by to see how you're doing." She walked in scanning everything. Everything. My heart raced. "You seem different," she commented. "More disconnected." "Yeah," I said. "Sometimes I even forget where I put things." She smiled, satisfied. "Normal." She sat down and opened a folder. My stomach turned. "I spoke to a colleague of mine, a psychiatrist," she said casually. "He treats elderly patients with memory lapses." "A psychiatrist?" "Preventive, Mom. Just an evaluation." Evaluation. A cold, clinical word. The test. "What day is it today?" Silvana asked suddenly. "I think Tuesday?" It was Friday. She wrote something down. "And who's the president of Brazil?" "Lula." She frowned, displeased. "Mom, focus." She wanted a mistake. I didn't give her one. "Who am I?" she insisted. "My daughter." "My full name?" "Silvana Aparecida Moreira." She snapped the folder shut harder than necessary. "You're trying too hard." "I always have." The air grew heavy. Her first mistake. When Silvana went to the bathroom, Maristella, hidden in the old guest room, activated one of the recorders. Silvana returned speaking on the phone, her voice low and tense. "No, he hasn't signed anything yet. No, she's better than I expected. Maybe we'll need to speed things up." Speed things up. My blood froze. "Yes, I know. But if we wait too long, she might catch on." She hung up, smiled as she returned to the room. "Everything okay, Mom?" "Just fine." Nothing was fine. The missing proof. That night, Maristella analyzed the data. "Transfers were made from devices registered under your CPF," she explained, "but authenticated externally." She pointed to the screen. "This IP belongs to your son-in-law's office." My entire body trembled. "So it was him?" "Both of them," she said, "working together." The pain was physical. And the cameras. Data streams to a server in Sao Paulo, registered to the Shell Company. She looked at me seriously. "Doña Carmen, they don't just want your money." "What else?" "They want your signature." The signature. 2 days later, Silvana returned, with papers. "Mom, this is just a power of attorney," she said, "so I can help you with things." I held the pen. My hands truly trembled this time. "Where do I sign?" Silvana smiled, victorious, but I didn't sign. I dropped the pen onto the floor. "I had a blackout," I murmured. "I forgot how to write my own name." Her smile froze. In that moment, I knew. The game had entered its most dangerous phase. The pen hit the floor with a sound far too sharp for such a small object. Silvana didn't move to pick it up. She watched me the way a doctor watches a patient who has just confirmed a diagnosis he already suspected. There was no surprise in her expression, only calculation, course correction. "Mom," she said with rehearsed patience, "it's okay. We'll sign another day." I kept staring at the paper as if it had turned into a foreign language. "The letters," I murmured, "they run away from me." Silvana took a deep breath, stood up, picked up the pen, and placed it back on the table, perfectly aligned with the page. Control. "You've been very tense," she said. "That affects memory." "It does." She carefully gathered the documents. "I'm going to schedule an appointment with Dr. Enrique. Excellent psychiatrist. You'll like him." Like him. I nodded, lowering my head. Inside, Maristella's voice screamed, "Don't confront, don't confront, don't confront." The silent agreement. After Silvana left, Maristella emerged from the room. She didn't expect that, she said, but now she'll accelerate. Institutionalization? Or direct guardianship? She closed her laptop. You need an ally inside the family. I thought of Kaio, my grandson, 17 years old, curious eyes, too perceptive for his age. He had already noticed something was wrong between his mother and grandmother, but involving him meant pulling him into a war. He's already in it, Maristella replied when I said that out loud. He just doesn't know. Tonino's warning. The next morning, Tonino pulled me aside near the barn. Donna Carmen. He adjusted his hat. Dr. Silvana's been asking too many questions. My heart raced. About what? About medication, whether you've been forgetful, whether I help you get dressed, those kinds of things. The ground seemed to vanish beneath my feet. And what did you say?
I told the truth, that you've always been sharper than a lot of younger folks. I gripped his arm. Thank you. He lowered his voice. But she also asked if you ever try to leave the house at night without knowing where you're going. My stomach twisted. And you said that I've never seen anything like that. But the seed had been planted. The appointment. The appointment was scheduled for the following week. Silvana insisted on taking me. So you don't get confused on the way. The office was in Uberlandia, too bright, smelled of alcohol, diplomas on the wall. Dr. Henrique smiled professionally. Mrs. Carmen, your daughter is worried about you. Silvana held a notepad. I knew it. Every word would be used against me. I answered little. I mixed up dates, forgot names. But not too much. Just enough. The doctor took notes. Do you feel disoriented sometimes? Sometimes. Do you forget appointments? Some. Have you heard voices? No. Silvana frowned. She wanted more. The wrong sentence. At the end of the appointment, the doctor asked, Do you know why you're here today? I looked at Silvana. She slightly tilted her head. Permission. Because I'm no good anymore, I said. Silence fell like a brick. The doctor looked up. Who told you that? Everyone says so, I murmured. Silvana tightened her grip on the pen. She didn't want self-pity. She wanted incapacity. The report. 2 days later, Maristella called me. We obtained a preliminary copy of the report. And? It's not enough for immediate guardianship, she said, but it opens the door. Opens the door. That was all they needed. The grandson. On Saturday, Kaio came alone. He sat with me on the porch, restless. Grandma, are you okay? Why? My mom's been strange, talking about clinics, papers, money. I took a deep breath. The moment had come. Kaio, I held his hand. If one day I say I'm confused, don't believe me. He frowned. What do you mean? Trust what you see more than what you're told. He fell silent. Are you scared? I looked at the coffee fields. I'm preparing. The night of the mistake. That night, Silvana returned, unannounced. Mom, you left the door open, she said, stepping inside. It was a lie. I did? You did. She mentally recorded it, but she didn't know. Maristella was recording everything, and Silvana had just made a serious mistake. She lied, and now it was documented. After the lie about the door, something shifted in Silvana's behavior. She became more cautious, less impulsive, as if she had realized the board was no longer entirely under her control. People who believe they dominate everything tend to reveal themselves when they start measuring every move.
I remained in the role of the confused old woman, but now they were in a hurry. The phone call. 3 days later, at 7 in the morning, the phone rang. "Mom, pack a small bag," Silvana said without preamble. "We're going to spend a few days away." Away? A clinic, just for observation. Observation. The word landed heavy, final. "I don't want to go," I murmured. "It's not a choice," she replied, and for the first time impatience slipped through. "It's for your own good." She hung up. My hands were shaking. Maristella arrived less than 20 minutes later. "It's today," she said, as expected. Plan B. "You're going," Maristella explained while helping me put on a simple coat. Refusing now only strengthens their narrative. And inside? Inside, you keep being exactly what you've been, observant. She slipped a small recorder into the inner pocket of my bag. "And don't sign anything, under any circumstances." I nodded. I knew. Arrival. The clinic was on a secondary road, surrounded by high walls and too many trees. Silvana drove in silence. Eugenio wasn't there. "He works too much," she said when I asked. Poorly disguised lie. The reception smelled of artificial lavender. Everything bright, clean, too quiet. People sat in chairs that were too comfortable, staring at nothing. "Mrs. Carmen Morera," the receptionist read from a file. "Room 12. Room. Not hotel room. Room. Isolation. My phone was taken. "Standard procedure," they said. Silvana signed papers. I watched. She didn't ask me to sign anything yet. Not yet. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said, kissing my forehead. "Rest." The door closed. The click of the lock echoed too loudly. I was trapped. The first night. The room was clean, organized, impersonal. Narrow bed, window that didn't open all the way, camera in the upper corner. Another one. I sat on the bed and took a deep breath. I didn't cry. Crying was exactly what they expected. The nurse. "Good evening, Mrs. Carmen," the nurse said, smiling. "I'm going to give you something to help you sleep." She held out a small cup with pills. I looked at them. "What for?" "Anxiety." "Anxiety? I already took them today," I lied. She hesitated. "It's noted here that you didn't." "Then it's wrong," I replied. She wrote something down and left. First small victory. The others. In the following days, I observed. There were elderly people who were truly confused. Others were simply tired. Some knew exactly where they were, but had lost the right to decide. A man named Alfredo told me, "My daughter said it was just for a week. It's been 6 months." The word weeks lost meaning in that place. The visit. On the third day, Silvana returned. "Are you adapting?" she asked. "I think so." "The doctor says you've been resistant to medication." "I sleep poorly." She smiled faintly. "That will change." She pulled out a folder. "Mom, this is just an authorization so I can follow your treatments." My heart raced. "Read it to me," I asked. She read too fast. "I trust more when I read," I insisted. She sighed, irritated. "Don't you trust me?" I looked at her. "I do." It wasn't true, but it worked. She put the papers away. Contact. That night, I found a way. Maristella's recorder had limited battery. I needed to act. I used the nurse's phone, saying I needed to call the bank. I reached Maristella. "I'm inside," I whispered. "I know," she replied. "We're already moving." "How long?" "Hold on." Real fear. At dawn, I woke up to someone watching me. The nurse was adjusting the camera. "Technical issue," she said. But she didn't meet my eyes. In that instant, I knew. If they got my signature in there, I would never leave. The clinic wasn't the end of the plan. It was the final obstacle before legal disappearance. And I needed to survive long enough to prove it. Inside the clinic, time didn't move. It dissolved. Days without names, nights without difference, meals served at the same hour with the same neutral taste, the same plastic spoon, the same trained smile of people taught not to get involved. That wasn't neglect. It was method. The fewer references you have, the less you resist. I remained lucid, and that made me dangerous. A change in strategy. On the 5th day, they replaced the doctor. Dr. Henrique never came back. In his place came Dr. Lucia. Firm gaze, low voice, few words. "Mrs. Carmen, your daughter reports a worsening of your memory lapses," she said bluntly. "She exaggerates." "It's common for family members to exaggerate," she replied without looking up from the file. "It's also common for patients to deny." Classic. She asked me to draw a clock. I drew it perfectly. She frowned. "Repeat 3 words. House, flower, money." House, flower, money. "Now talk to me." We spoke for a few minutes. What were the words? House, flower, money. She closed the file harder than necessary. I was interfering with the plan. Silvana's message. That afternoon, a nurse handed me a folded note. Sign it and everything becomes easier. No signature. None was needed. My hands sweated. It was the first direct threat. Pressure. At the next visit, Silvana brought no affection. She brought urgency. "Mom, this isn't a prison," she said, sitting too close, "but it can become one." She placed the papers on the bed. "If you cooperate, you'll leave quickly." "Cooperate how?" "By signing." "What?" "Technical things." "Technical." I laughed. "Your father hated that word," I said. She stiffened. "Don't bring Dad into this." "He would be ashamed of you." The slap came fast. Weak, but enough. "You're confused," she said, breathing hard, "and dangerous to yourself." Dangerous. That word went into reports. I touched my face. "I'm sorry," I murmured. She left, satisfied. The slap didn't hurt. What hurt was realizing my daughter had crossed a line with no return. The final proof. That night, Maristella got something that changed everything. Nurse Anna, too young for that place, approached me while changing the sheets. "I heard," she whispered. "I don't agree with what they're doing to you." I didn't look at her. "Then don't talk." "They're bringing a lawyer tomorrow." My heart nearly stopped. "For what?" "To resolve your legal situation." Resolve. "They said you don't know what you're signing." I thanked her with nothing but a glance. The emergency plan. When I was alone, I spoke softly into the recorder. "Lawyer tomorrow. Urgent. Forced signature." If that message got out, I had a chance. If it didn't, I would disappear into paperwork. The lawyer. He arrived at 10 in the morning. Expensive suit, leather briefcase, impatient eyes. "Mrs. Carmen, I'll explain this simply," he said. "Your daughter wants to protect you." "From myself?" He smiled. "Exactly." He slid the paper across the table. "Here, you transfer powers to your daughter to manage assets and medical decisions. And after that?" After that, you rest. Rest. May I read it carefully? Of course, he answered too quickly. I read. It wasn't a power of attorney. It was total transfer. If I signed, I would cease to exist legally. I'm not signing. The lawyers sighed. You don't understand the seriousness of your condition. I understand perfectly the seriousness of your lack of ethics. He gathered the papers. Then we'll have to follow another path. The other path. That night, they gave me the full medication for the first time. It's protocol, the nurse said, avoiding my eyes. I knew. I swallowed half. Spat half into a tissue. I lay down. The world slowed, but it didn't go dark. Before sleeping, I thought of Osvaldo. If you ignore the details, everything stops working. They were ignoring one essential detail. I was still there, and I wasn't done fighting. I woke up feeling as if I had swum across an entire river. The medication hadn't done what they expected. Not completely. My body was heavy, but my mind was clear enough to understand one thing. This was the day. When plans fail, impatient people make mistakes, and Silvana was impatient. The wrong move. At 9 in the morning, two things happened almost at the same time. Dr. Lucia entered my room with a clipboard, and on the other side of the building, Maristella triggered what she had been preparing for weeks. The clinic's system went down. Computers shut off, cameras went inactive, automatic doors switched to manual mode. "What's happening?" the doctor asked, irritated. "I don't know. Must be my age." She didn't find it funny. The forced signature. Silvana appeared less than half an hour later. No makeup, no calm, no mask. "Mom, the game's over," she said, closing the door. She placed the paper on the table. "Sign now. And if I don't?" She stepped closer. "No one will believe you." She was right. Or she would have been. Everyone already thinks you're not all there. She pushed the pen toward my hand. "This is just a detail." Detail? I looked at the paper, then at her. "You saw me fall that night," I said. She froze. My knee, 3 in the morning, in the living room. Silence turned solid. "You saw me through the clock," I continued, "through the shrine, through the kitchen." Her mouth opened, closed. "How long do you think I've known everything?" She stepped back. "You don't know anything. I know you stole from your own son." She screamed. "Shut up!" The slap came hard this time. But someone heard it. The open door. The door swung open. Nurse Anna. Behind her, 2 staff members. "What's going on here?" Anna asked. Silvana turned. "This woman is delirious." "No," I said, my voice steady. "This woman is being coerced." The recorder in my pocket blinked. Silvana went pale. The moment of truth. "There are more people listening," I added. She laughed, nervous. "You really think anyone will believe you?" At that moment, the door opened again. Maristella walked in, with a police officer and a prosecutor. The world snapped back into place. "Mrs. Carmen Morera," the prosecutor said, "you are under judicial protection." Silvana screamed, "This is a lie! She's incompetent!" "That will be decided with evidence," the prosecutor replied, "and there is plenty of it." The evidence. Maristella laid everything on the table. Recordings, bank reports, IP logs, videos. The lie about the door, the slap, the lawyer, the clinic, everything. Silvana started crying. Not from remorse, from frustration. The final silence. As they took her away, she looked at me. "You ruined me." "No," I said. "You revealed yourself." The officer placed the handcuffs. She didn't resist. Eugenio was arrested the same day. The Sun. I walked out of the clinic. No wheelchair, no assistance. The sunlight blinded me for a second. Maristella held my arm. "It's over." I shook my head. No. Now it begins. Because I still had to rebuild what was broken. But for the first time in a long time, I existed again. Freedom doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't explode. It settles. The days after the clinic were quiet in a way that felt almost foreign. No doors locking behind me, no pills handed to me without explanation, no voices speaking about me while pretending to speak for me. Silence, when it is chosen, is healing. The aftermath. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Evidence has weight. Silvana's accounts were frozen, the shell company was dismantled, the guardianship request was not just denied, it was reversed into a criminal investigation. Abuse of a vulnerable adult. Financial exploitation. Coercion. Words that looked unreal on paper, yet perfectly described what had happened. Eugenio accepted a plea deal. Silvana didn't. She fought. Not to defend herself, but to regain control. The house. Returning home was harder than leaving the clinic. Every corner carried memory. The armchair where Osvaldo used to sleep. The clock on the wall, silent now, removed. The shrine. Empty space where something sacred had been violated. We found 12 cameras. 12. Some so well hidden, I wondered how many times I had cried in front of them. The house was cleansed. Not with prayers, with truth. Caio. Caio moved in with me for a while. He didn't ask questions at first. One night, sitting on the porch, he finally spoke. "She was going to do the same to me, wasn't she?" "Yes. With my money. And your freedom." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad you didn't let them." "So am I." The trial. When I testified, Silvana didn't look at me. She stared at the judge, still searching for authority, still convinced someone else would speak for her. I spoke calmly. I spoke clearly. I spoke as someone who existed. The courtroom was silent when I finished. The letter. A month later, I received a letter from Silvana. 4 pages. No apology, only justification. I didn't answer. Some conversations don't deserve continuation. The body remembers. I still wake up at night sometimes. Certain smells bring back the clinic. Certain silences feel dangerous. Trauma doesn't disappear. It learns where to sleep. But I learned something too. What remains? What remains is not bitterness. It's precision. I double-check signatures. I read everything. I ask questions. I trust my instincts again. What remains is dignity. And something else. More fragile, more valuable.